Life is full of little details that give meaning to every moment, and almost all of us find something to admire, or a reason that keeps us going. In this search, it's hard to ignore the sheer power of nature. Almost no one is indifferent to the unique atmosphere our planet offers. Now imagine a place so cold that even the thought of living there feels extreme. This remote spot is known as the coldest inhabited place in the Northern Hemisphere, and its harsh conditions could easily shake anyone's hope. Yet it's precisely this kind of environment that makes us appreciate the geography we live in, because it reminds us how the world can be both unforgiving and fascinating at the same time. We're talking about Greenland, a massive island that often goes unnoticed in our daily lives. Covering around 2 million square kilometers, most of its surface is blanketed in ice. Over 80% of its territory is trapped under a frozen layer, and temperatures can drop to almost unimaginable levels for those living in milder climates. Located in the North Atlantic Ocean, Greenland has political autonomy but remains connected to the Kingdom of Denmark. It's a place that stands out not just for its icy expanse but also for the lessons it teaches about resilience and adaptation. The biggest city, Nuuk, has about 20,000 residents. Across the entire territory, there are roughly 60,000 people. But how did they end up living in such a remote place? If we go back about 1,200 years, we find that Norwegian and Icelandic sailors arrived in the region before any other Europeans. They saw Greenland as an opportunity to create a refuge while also setting up trade routes. Later, Norwegians and Danes brought more people over, increasing the population to around 2,000 at the time. Over time, trading colonies popped up, and the Scandinavians tried to introduce farming and expand commerce. But the conditions didn't cooperate. Contrary to what many might think, the extreme cold wasn't the biggest challenge to life on the island. The real problem was the lack of suitable water for the animals the Vikings had brought, leading to mass livestock deaths. Without those resources, the idea of sustaining large communities became impossible. Imagine arriving in a place where, no matter how hard you tried, nothing would grow. That's exactly what Scandinavian farmers faced in Greenland. The dry, unproductive soil made it impossible to plant grass or trees, forcing many families to give up and return home. Only a few stayed, driven by the possibility of trade. But Greenland's history didn't start with the Scandinavians. The Inuit people, also known as Eskimos, were there long before them. They arrived during the Ice Age when Greenland was still connected to other territories by land. As they settled in these harsh environments, they built a tradition of resilience that still amazes people today. Now, Greenland's population is made up of descendants of both the Inuit and the Scandinavians, who centuries ago saw the land turn green in the summer and thought it could be good for farming. But reality proved to be very different. Only a few managed to work with the stubborn soil. Even so, this mix of cultures created a people who, to this day, carry the marks of centuries or even millennia of struggle and adaptation to a tough and unforgiving land. Imagine a massive land, mostly covered in ice, yet called Greenland. That's how foreigners still refer to it today, a name inherited from a past when its more habitable areas made the title seem fitting. But the story of this island is about much more than just its name. In the mid-20th century, Greenland was part of the European Union as an autonomous community. Everything was going smoothly under the agreements until the EU started imposing restrictions on the country's main source of income, fishing. On top of that, Greenland drew attention for its uranium and iron reserves, which make up a significant portion of the world's supply of these minerals. The idea of being under constant oversight while watching its resources get exploited led the people to make a big decision. In 1985, through a referendum, Greenland chose to leave the EU. While it still maintains an official relationship with Denmark, including receiving about $1 billion annually to support its infrastructure, Greenland gained more freedom to make major decisions. This includes managing its own fish stocks and independently deciding how to handle its natural resources. It's no surprise that Greenland is on the radar of major powers like China, Russia, and the United States. The interest goes far beyond fishing potential. Beneath the ice lie vast amounts of uranium and iron, fueling speculation about the future of these minerals and the geopolitical influence in the region. Imagine living in a place where, if you decide to study or get medical treatment in another country, The government covers all the costs. That's how it works in Greenland when someone chooses to go to Denmark. This support system gives residents a level of security that few places in the world can offer. Another unique aspect is that you can't buy land in Greenland. If you want to build a house or start a business, you need permission from the government. Once you pay the necessary taxes, you can use the land for as long as you need, but you'll never actually own it. In the capital, Nuuk, most buildings receive government funding. Many of these houses are painted in bright colors, making them stand out to first-time visitors. If you're looking to buy one, the average price is around $350,000. It's a big investment, but it reflects the unique conditions of the area. Greenland is a frozen landmass for most of the year. Not everyone feels comfortable in such an extreme environment, but those who give the country a chance often find surprising details. Even in the middle of the ice, small patches of green manage to push through. Plus, car and factory pollution is almost non-existent, making the sky noticeably clearer. The most fascinating thing, though, is how people always seem to be smiling. Despite the cold and daily challenges, they show a genuine happiness. Maybe it's the fresh air, maybe it's the strong sense of community, or maybe it's a little bit of both. There, almost everyone knows each other and lives in harmony, without grudges or political disputes. In this setting, both the Inuit and Scandinavian peoples see themselves as the true guardians of these lands, united in Greenland. That's why it's rare to find signs of malice or selfishness in this region. Understanding the importance of family is the key to surviving in this environment. Almost no one lives alone because life becomes nearly impossible without support. The extreme cold demands unity, and keeping families close is the best way to overcome challenges. One of the biggest fears among locals is the melting of the glaciers, which could erase the landscapes they've always known. If that happens, they will be the first to suffer, followed by the rest of us, as rising sea levels could trigger disasters worldwide. These people also face unpredictable dangers from the ocean. Sudden tsunamis can hit sailors' boats and destroy everything in their path. That's why they stay highly alert to nature's signals and prepare for any changes. One wrong move could mean getting swept away by the freezing waters, because the sea doesn't forgive mistakes. When you first arrive in Greenland, the feeling of isolation is overwhelming. In Nuuk, the capital, there's a lack of entertainment options, efficient healthcare services, and convenient transportation to make daily life easier. If something doesn't exist there, you can't just hop over to another country to get it. It almost feels like stepping onto a lunar colony, far away from the rest of the world with little connection to it. This isolation affects more than just day-to-day life. The population is small, and finding someone to share life with isn't easy. When people can't find a partner on their own, they sometimes ask the local administrator for help. If someone becomes a widow or widower, there's an expectation that they will remarry and have children to keep the community from shrinking even more. In some cases, a woman may even have more than one husband because the main goal is to maintain an active population. Every time someone leaves, life becomes even harder for those who stay. That's the daily challenge in Greenland, finding ways to survive despite the limitations, working around the lack of resources, and ensuring new families are formed. It's all part of a collective effort to keep one of the most isolated places on Earth alive. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to live in a place with almost no roads, limited internet access, and where trash has to be dumped in areas far from any city? In Greenland, this is the reality for many communities. Without a proper infrastructure system, large waste deposits pile up in uninhabited zones, a temporary fix for now, but something that could turn into a much bigger problem in the future. Internet access is also a luxury. Only the capital, Nuuk, has a connection. And even then, it's expensive and slow. Outside the city, digital communication is practically non-existent. In this environment, even transportation works differently. In Nuuk, you'll see a few cars here and there. But in rural areas, motorcycles and automobiles are rare. The extreme cold, sometimes dropping to -50 degrees Celsius, causes many vehicles to break down, and repairing them is costly since replacement parts are hard to find. That's why, in the most remote areas, dog sleds are still one of the main ways to get around. Huskies, often called Siberian wolves, are strong and reliable partners, helping transport supplies and people from one place to another. Imagine living in a place so remote that if someone gets seriously ill, there's no ambulance or car available. The only option is to call a helicopter. That's the reality of a village with about 4,000 people and, surprisingly, over 3,000 wolves. These animals aren't just used for transportation. They also help track down the game that the entire community depends on for survival. The wolves' diet consists of raw meat, which makes them fierce and loyal only to their owners. If they go hungry, they can band together and attack anything nearby. Still, there's a practical understanding between humans and wolves. As long as they get food and shelter, they assist with transportation and hunting. It's a relationship of mutual benefit, driven purely by the need to survive. In Greenland, almost nothing grows in terms of fruits and vegetables. Even with some technological solutions, hunting marine and land animals remains the main source of food. Locals head out to sea in boats, using rifles to hunt seals and polar bears. They eat the meat to survive and use the fur to make clothing that protects them from the brutal cold. Imagine facing a frozen river when you don't have a boat. The only way across is to break through the icy surface and try fishing with your bare hands. In some parts of Greenland, this is a daily challenge for many people. They use sharp poles to carve a hole in the ice and then cast handmade nets into the water. With patience and strength, they usually return home with their meal for the day. In this part of the world, almost everything that comes from the sea ends up as food. It's not uncommon to find seals in Greenlandic homes or see polar bear heads displayed in restaurants. The value of these hunts is so significant that in certain rituals, they can even replace gold or money. At weddings, for example, it's a common tradition to gift someone a polar bear head as a symbol of respect and prestige. Hunting these animals isn't easy. It requires teamwork, patience, and serious skill, which is why polar bear meat is so expensive in restaurants. For Greenlanders, offering whale meat to a special guest is also a sign of honor. They enjoy a variety of marine meats, though, as they jokingly say, they draw the line at eating human hearts. Have you ever imagined having a knife in your hand during every meal? In some parts of Greenland, that's just part of daily life. The Inuit use knives to separate meat from the bone before eating. Meanwhile, the Scandinavian families living there follow traditions inherited from Denmark. Despite its vast territory, Greenland has very few residents, making any encounter with another person feel special. Outside the capital Nuuk, there are only 6 settlements. In one of them, about 300 people live with just a small market and a church. In this place, having a chronic illness can be life-threatening due to the lack of healthcare resources. There are no cars, flowers, insects, cell phones, or entertainment centers, just frozen landscapes. In the winter, the sun sometimes disappears for days, leaving everything in complete darkness. When snowstorms hit, there's nowhere to take shelter. Anyone caught off guard can get sick and end up bedridden for months. But at the same time, the same sky that can be terrifying also offers a rare spectacle. The northern lights dance slowly, adding beauty to such an isolated place. In this part of the world, even getting clean water is a reason to feel relieved. Because of the intense cold, even household pipes can freeze. To work around this problem, the government delivers clean water, a resource that likely arrives with help from Denmark. Despite the challenges, people there have found ways to make the most of their environment. Sliding on the ice, befriending wolves, and dancing are activities that bring joy and strengthen their bonds. They also keep their cultural heritage alive through an ancient language called Kala Alasut, which has been spoken for thousands of years. Meanwhile, the Danes continue using their own language, making communication between the two groups a constant challenge. Living in Greenland takes courage and resilience. However, the country's strategic location could make it even more important in the future. If you found these facts interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and keep up with our content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.